Westwood One presents America at Night. Here's your host, McGraw Milhaven.
Right to it. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining us on a Wednesday night, May 6th. We got lots to get to. A little bit later on in the show, we're going to talk about Johnny Appleseed, American folk hero Johnny Appleseed, an American original. Also, a little bit later on, did you hear the news that GameStop wants to try and buy eBay? There's a whole bunch of financiers scratching their heads. Does it make sense? We'll go inside and talk about it coming up a little bit later on. But recently, somebody told me to watch the Netflix documentary Unknown Number, the high school catfish. It came out last year, and it is an unbelievable true story about a high school teenage girl named Lauren Lacarty, and she and her boyfriend started getting harassed with these text messages. And over 15 months, they were getting more and more harassing text messages. More text messages, more heinous, terrible, awful, insulting, threatening. In some instances, they even sort of insinuated that this young teenage girl should take her life. They finally call the cops. They bring in the authorities. They do the research. And you know who they find out it was? They found out it was the teenager's mother who was catfishing her the whole time. Reason why we bring this up is there is going to be a tour of crime and victims, and Dr. Nicky Jackson is a professor of criminal justice at Purdue University. He joins us. He's going to be the host of the event. And, of course, Melissa Perry is here, who is the cousin of the mother who was convicted of texting her daughter. Dr. Nicky and Melissa, welcome to America at Night.
Thank you so much.
Okay, Dr. Nicky, first let's start with you. Give us a sense of what this Crime Unfiltered Tour is going to be.
Okay. Well, before we even begin, it's Purdue University Northwest. I just want to make sure we give the right shout out. So it's Purdue, which is part of Purdue, but we're Purdue Northwest. So the tour is basically going to be headlining the survivors behind some of the nation's most famous cases, including John Ramsey, and obviously the father from Unknown Number, Sean Lacarty, and Melissa Perry, who is the cousin, as you've already mentioned, of the mother who was doing the catfish. We also have Denise and Aaron Quinn, who were featured in the American Nightmare documentary. They were dubbed the Gone Girl case. I don't know if you remember that one, but the police believed that she faked her own kidnapping. And while they were so focused on her then boyfriend, now husband, she was being assaulted. And so they're also on the tour. We also have Gabby Petito's mother, Nicole Schmidt, and Gabby's bonus mom, Tara Petito, who will be joining us. And we also have Sean Ellis, who was featured in Trial 4 on Netflix, which is an incredible documentary. His story is unfortunately all too common in my world. I work with people who are wrongfully convicted, and Sean Ellis was wrongfully convicted of killing a Boston police officer. So we're bringing all of these survivors, we're bringing them all on stage so people can really see them and hear what happened that they didn't hear about in the documentaries.
And it's a chance to sort of ask them questions and have them and hear directly from some of the people who were thrust into the spotlight. Dr. Nicky, before we talk to Melissa, take me through this case, Unknown Number. It's so unbelievable to think that a mother would do this to their own daughter. How do you square that as a doctor and as a professor of criminal justice?
Well, I have to tell you, I've seen a lot. I've been a professor for 36 years. I've been in this field for 4 decades, and this one just blew my mind when I got the call from the executive producer who is on my board that this show was coming out. I had no idea what I was going to be watching. And as I was watching, like everyone else, I was completely stunned, not only wearing my professor hat, but as a mother wearing my mom hat. I just couldn't wrap my head around what I was observing. I thought, wow, is this like somebody who was suffering from Munchausen? But I was so floored by what I was seeing that, like everybody else, I was in shock. But there was no question in my mind that Kendra was, trying to get attention. Clearly, she must have felt, and I have not ever interviewed her or talked to her, but I will say that, in my opinion, I thought this woman has got to have, she's lonely. She's lonely. She's desperate. She, in my opinion, was also quite envious of her daughter, and that her daughter was happy and healthy and living a good life. And she, in my opinion, wanted to live a life like her daughter. And, it was good. It was just so sick and twisted that it's still like one of those cases where I'm often flustered when I talk about it.
Yeah, and
so I'm not sure if I gave you the right answer.
No,
but that's how I felt at the moment. Just as
there is no,
shocked
there is
as I.
no, yeah, there is no right answer, because when somebody told me to watch this documentary, I was like, yeah, sure, and I got sucked into it because you just can't believe it. Melissa Perry is with us tonight. She is the cousin of the mother, Kendra, who was sentenced. Melissa, not only did you were following along with this nightmare as your cousin or your family was getting these death threats from on her phone, and then to find out the mother was involved, your cousin, but then, of course, all the national spotlight falls onto the family. How did you deal with all this, Melissa?
It's kind of been a big falling out. We actually, as a family, didn't know about the text messages until Kendra got arrested. The first time I heard about it, my 85-year-old aunt who lives in northern Michigan sent she was on this, she got the same news as Kendra, and she sent us a link that Kendra got arrested. So that was the first I heard about it. And then I kind of got involved, helped Sean, he ended up divorcing her, and helped him kind of get through and maneuver a little bit as the best we could. I mean, it was just such a wild story. You see it on TV and people say, like, if that was me and if I was in that situation, this is what I would do. You have no idea until you actually are in that situation. And it's created so much turmoil in the family. I mean, we used to do holiday dinners. Every Christmas was this huge Christmas. And now every holiday is just, everyone feels sick about it. Nobody wants to plan anything. I mean, this year for Easter was the first Easter we have gotten together. I've gotten together with my parents since everything went down, because they were always nervous she was going to stop by. So they didn't invite me.
Wow.
So it's been a huge falling out.
Yeah. Dr. Nicky, you often hear this, right? People who are the closest to the people who do these terrible things, they don't know that it's like they're leading double lives.
Yeah. And I think it's really important for people to understand that there were so many victims that were born out of this nightmare. It wasn't just, unfortunately, just Lauren. It was her father. It was the family. This breach of trust has impacted even, the public. If a mother can do this and we're watching it unfold on television, people may just pause for a moment and look around at their own families and the people that they think they know. And from my understanding, Kendra was and bear with me when I say this, but a good mother. And when I say good mother, what I've heard from people is she was very attentive. And for me, that doesn't mean you're a good mother. It means you're an attentive mother. So it's one of those cases where it's so hard to believe. And I think Melissa said it well. You see these things on TV and it's hard to even believe. Let's be honest. If we watch this on Lifetime, we'd say this could never happen. This could just never happen. And sadly, it did happen. It happened to Lauren. It happened to her father. It happened to their entire family. I mean, Melissa has also been victimized. She's talking about how this has impacted her own family. And Sean, I've had the great pleasure of getting to know Sean. He's an incredible man who has been really hurt. Trust is going to be an issue for Sean for a very long time. And I don't think people often think about male victims. And I've explained to Sean that by him speaking out about what has happened to him, he's really courageous. And he's, in my book, he's the hero. And if he's talking about what happened to him, I promise you there are other men sitting out there who are going to listen and be able to relate to him in some way. And, to me, that is so important that he's using his voice, going to be on the stage. And it's not something he's comfortable with. And we want to make sure that, all of these survivors who are on that stage are not exploited and that they're comfortable. And Sean has never spoken out publicly, except for a couple weeks ago. We were in New York and he was being interviewed for a major news show. And that was the first time he spoke publicly on camera. He did speak to my students last fall, which was incredible. That was the first time he spoke in front of anybody about what happened to him. And my students, as you can imagine, they're college kids. They'd all seen the show and the documentary. And so seeing him, hearing what happened from him was unbelievable. And their heart ached for them, or for him and for Lauren. Yeah. And they wanted to know what they could do to help him, which really is pretty incredible.
Dr. Nicky Jackson is going to co-host a tour, and we'll give you some of the tour dates and some of the tour stops. It's called Crime Unfiltered, where you sit and talk to the people who are at the center of some of these horrific sort of crimes that have captured the nation. You're also going to talk to John Ramsey, the father of the John Ramsey case, which, if you look at that, that's very similar to the Nancy Guthrie case, right? It was never solved. And while in Melissa's case, the answer was solved, as horrible as it is, but it must be even worse for people whose thrusted lives are changed forever, and they never get a resolution. They never know what happened. That must be even a worse hell in some places.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Doctor?
So I think, so with the Ramsey case, one of the reasons that I wanted to bring John on stage is I think there's a lot of misperceptions, misunderstandings about what happened during the investigation or lack thereof. And there were so many things that I didn't know. Quite frankly, all I knew is what the media had told me, right? I have no idea what happened on that horrific night to John Bonet. And having met John and hearing what did happen after, John Bonet had been discovered, it was really shocking to me. And I explained to John that a lot of people don't know what the investigation was like, what his family went through. And there are still people out there who believe, the family was involved somehow. And this is one of the things that we want people to ask questions. And I've asked John, are there any questions that you just don't feel comfortable answering? And he said, no, nothing is off the table, which is pretty incredible. That's partly why it's called Unfiltered. People can ask questions and he's going to give them the answers that he knows. This is a man who, this is the 30-year anniversary of John Bonet's murder. He has been fighting for 30 years to get answers, and all the while dealing with, media and, the court of public opinion. And I am really saddened for him and his family that they've had to endure this hell, first of all, by losing John Bonet in such a horrific manner, but also all of the shade that's been thrown at the family.
Yeah,
they've gone
through hell and back.
Oh,
There's
they've
no
gone through
question
hell
about
and
it.
back.
Yeah,
Dr. Nicky, and I asked him.
Doctor, I'm gonna have to cut you off. I want to make sure I get the dates out. Dr. Nicky Jackson is the co-host and the co-creator of this tour. It's called Crime Unfiltered. They have stops in Chicago, in Milwaukee, Indianapolis, and Royal Oak, Michigan. Dr. Nicky, what's the website that people can sort of find out more information about all this?
It's www.crimeunfiltered.com.
Crimeunfiltered.com. Tour stops in Chicago, Milwaukee, Indianapolis, and Royal Oak. That is Dr. Nicky Jackson. She's a criminal justice professor at Purdue University Northwestern. Also joining us tonight is Melissa Perry, who is the cousin of the mother in the Netflix documentary Unknown Number, which was an unbelievably horrible story. Ladies, thank you for joining us tonight on a busy night. Good luck to you down the road.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much for having us.
You got it. America at Night. We're just getting started. Back in a minute.
Live from coast to coast, this is America at Night with McGraw Milhaven. This is America at Night with McGraw Milhaven.
All right, we got lots to get to tonight. When we come back, it was announced Friday that GameStop, yes, the company GameStop, which was left for dead, it was a brick and mortar store that sold video games. It was non-existent. It was shorted by everybody. They got some type of second life after the meme stock thing happened, and all of a sudden people started jumping in on GameStop to stick it to the man. And then Friday, it was announced that they want to buy eBay and go up against Amazon. Is that even possible? Their CEO of GameStop is making quite a bit of noise in this space. So we're going to check in with a businessman from the University of Chicago who knows a thing or two about this. So hang tight for that. That should be interesting. And then in next hour, Johnny Appleseed. Yes, Johnny Appleseed was a real man and a real guy. And there is a New York Times best-selling author who has written a book about Johnny Appleseed. It's called American Rambler, Walking the Trail of Johnny Appleseed. He decided to walk in the footsteps of Johnny Appleseed. It is an interesting read about a man and a journey across America to walk and meet America, where America lives. It's an interesting tale, sort of like Easy Rider in a sense, if I can be so bold. The book is called American Rambler, Walking the Trail of Johnny Appleseed. Isaac Fitzgerald is getting a lot of attention. This book is just out. It's getting a lot of attention. The book is out next week, so we're going to check in with him next hour. We're just getting started. Don't forget the text line is alive and well, 1-844-2-McGraw, 1-844-262-4729. Stay right there. Can GameStop do the unthinkable and buy eBay? We'll take a deep dive coming up next on America at Night.
You're listening to America at Night with McGraw Milhaven.
With the University of Chicago at the Booth School of Business. Is that the right title for you? Is there anything else you want us to include in there?
Yeah, it's the correct title is Adjunct Professor of Marketing. That's the title.
Adjunct Professor of Marketing. All right.
At the University of Chicago. Yeah, you got the rest of it right. University of Chicago Booth School of Business.
Absolutely. I'll get that in here for you. And then we're going to have you tonight with us for just one segment of the show. It should take us to around 9:50 Eastern, so about the next 20 minutes here. So you don't have to worry about sitting through a commercial break or anything like that. Once we get you on with McGraw, you can just enjoy the conversation. And once we wrap up, you're free to enjoy the rest of your evening.
Great. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. We're going to get you on hold here. You should hear the show kick in about 2.5 minutes. And if you need anything else, I'll be right here. You can just give me a shout. And we're going to be audio only, so you don't have to worry about the camera or anything like that.
All right. That makes it easier. Sure.
Absolutely. So like I said, we'll get you connected with McGraw here now in about 2 minutes.
All right, great.
This is America at Night with McGraw Milhaven.
GameStop, which was once a thriving business, then technology passed it by, only to become a laughingstock, only to get the last laugh. Now wants to buy eBay to talk about it and exactly what are the possibilities of this actually happening. We're going to talk to Christopher Krohn, is an adjunct professor of marketing at the University of Chicago Booth School of Business. Professor, welcome to America at Night.
Thank you, McGraw. It's great to be here.
GameStop is worth $12 billion. eBay's worth $50 billion. How does this work? Can they actually pull this off?
Well, that's the question, isn't it? There's a lot of folks out there who have raised a few eyebrows at the offer. The concept on the table, at least, is that they would use a stock and cash deal, meaning they would pay half in cash and half in stock. But the numbers so far don't seem to be adding up. The CEO gave an interview earlier this week where he couldn't quite make the numbers work, even even at a top level. So they have some debt lined up with TD Bank. They're going to use some of their own stock. They have $9 billion or so in cash on hand. So it's not completely unimaginable that something like this could occur. But right now, it doesn't seem like they quite have the figures figured out yet.
Forget the money side of this. Let's just talk about the strategic part of it. GameStop has a whole bunch of retail outlets. eBay is an online auction site. In some weird ways, it kind of makes sense to me in some weird way.
Yeah, you can see that multi-channel retail companies, generally speaking, outperform single-channel retail. So that if you're, primarily online or primarily, bricks and mortar, most of those companies, in order to grow, eventually need to reach out and start, building in the other channels. So there's, super high-level logic there that makes sense. The challenge is when you look at eBay's business online, there's relatively little overlap with GameStop's existing product line. GameStop's done a great job in the last few years building up its collectibles business. Now represents something like a third of their revenue. And there's definitely an overlap there with eBay's business. But if you look at what eBay sells, collectibles is a piece of it. There's also things like, luxury handbags and fashion and apparel and accessories. eBay Motors is a big part of their business. So things like auto parts and electronics, right? Physical electronics is another huge part of eBay's business. So there's a part of it that overlaps between GameStop's existing customer base and existing lines of merchandise, but a large part of eBay that really is completely separate and wouldn't make sense in a GameStop store, if that's clear.
Yeah, and eBay has their own problems. I thought that was a booming business, but eBay's got its own problems, does it not?
Well, they do. They have challenges in the sense that they've really had to focus in the last few years on several focus categories, several of which I've mentioned. So auto parts is one, fashion and accessories, electronics, etc. They've done a pretty good job of that overall. They've deployed some AI features that have helped buyers find the right goods and sellers sell their merchandise and represent it online. And those focus categories, they've added some value-added features where you can have your products graded and certified and things like that, so that there's some benefit in these specialty categories beyond just a pure plain old retail site. So their stock price has actually been doing pretty well in the last couple of years. So you're definitely right. They've had some challenges in the past. It seems like under the current CEO, they're headed in generally the right direction. So I don't know if it makes sense for them right now to say, oh, well, we'll let this small retailer take us over. I'm not sure where I see the value add there.
eBay is sort of like an overstock store online. You see a lot of people who sell one-off comic books or baseball cards or have a store of baseball cards, but you also see people who sell soap and deodorant and toothbrushes, and I don't know if it's like it fell off the truck and people have a side business, right? It's sort of everything and nothing all at the same time. How would that play with a brick and mortar store? Would you walk into a brick and mortar store and it would be like a overstock outlet store where you would go in and just find random things?
Yeah, McGraw, I don't think that would work at all. I mean, first of all, as you mentioned, at least 40, maybe 50% of eBay's business is individual sellers, selling stuff that they've had in their garage or their attic or whatever. And you obviously can't put that into physical stores. There's no way to get that into GameStop stores. And even in their businesses where eBay has higher volume, so, take collectibles, for example, coins, collecting coins is popular all around the globe. But if you have specialty rare coins or even, uncommon coins, you can't put those in every GameStop store. First of all, even if coins are small, you're going to run out of space as soon as you start adding things like handbags and auto parts. And second of all, there would be a massive inventory investment that would be required to do that. And then the last part is GameStop, well, it's got a fair amount of stores, doesn't have that many stores. I think we're talking about, something around the range of 1,600 or 2,000 in the United States. So it's not like you're looking at a Walmart where you could, cover the retail distribution, where something like 90% of the US population lives close to a Walmart. So I think your instincts are right, McGraw. It's probably not possible to take all that junk and shove it into the existing physical retail stores for GameStop.
Christopher Krohn is our guest. He's an adjunct professor of marketing at the University of Chicago Booth School of Business. We're talking about the idea that GameStop wants to buy eBay. And you're an expert at one of the greatest business schools the world ever created. And some of these mergers that happen throughout the years, I know I'm not the smartest man in the room, but a lot of times there's a bunch of head scratching going on. In this instance, is it more or less by the CEO of GameStop, fake it till you make it? I mean, is he trying to put a square peg in a round hole and just sort of think it? I mean, or is this guy really a visionary that none of us really see what he's going to try and do?
It's a great question. I love the way you framed that question. There are all kinds of different reasons why M&A transactions go forward. One would hope that the CEO of the acquiring company, in this case, the company that's looking to acquire eBay, GameStop, has the shareholders of GameStop at heart and is looking to maximize the shareholder value for GameStop shareholders. It's like I said, it's not entirely out of the question that such a transaction could go forward, but given there isn't really a great logic on the retail side, as we've talked about, and the financing doesn't seem to be fully there yet, it really is a head scratcher. And at this point, I personally don't see the genius behind the question mark here. I've been wrong before, so we'll see.
I've been wrong, but I've been right. I didn't get the AOL Time Warner merger. Everyone said I was crazy. It turns out I was the smartest one in the room.
So you nailed that one, yeah.
I was the only one. What is eBay saying? Are they open to this? They've been relatively playing this close to the vest, haven't they?
They've been very quiet. They said they're looking at the offer, which, of course, the board of directors has a fiduciary obligation and responsibility to eBay shareholders to take a look at that. The eBay stock has risen a little bit on the potential for a transaction at what was at a higher rate than was previously market value. And conversely, GameStop stock is down a little bit as investors GameStop don't necessarily see that as positive for their portfolios. So there really isn't anything else yet from eBay. They'll take it to the board and they'll have a discussion around that. And I expect we'll hear relatively soon what their initial response will be.
In the overall M&A space, the idea was that Trump was going to get into office, prices and bonds would go down and money would be cheaper and we would see a flood of mergers and acquisitions. That really hasn't happened. What's going on?
Well, the M&A environment right now is what I would call a specialty environment. I've been involved in a couple of M&A transactions over the last couple of years. And what you really see is where there's good strategic sense in the pairing, where the offerings are complementary, where one company can make a greater use out of the other company's assets than the company that currently owns them can do. You do see M&A transactions happening. It hasn't been the floodgates like you described.
Is that because the money isn't as cheap as they thought it was, or they're just not seeing any deals?
Certainly, interest rates are up for debt financing relative to where they were, a couple of years ago. They're not punitively high right now, so that if you want to put a debt finance deal together, it is possible, and you do see some of these. You aren't seeing a flood of LBO type situations because money isn't that cheap, as you mentioned. So it's really more about the strategic fit, I would say, than the overall environment for finance.
When you see something like a GameStop be so public in all of this, right? I mean, they're really not shy. They're trying to do a bum's rush. What does that tell you? Are they trying to make some buzz? Are they trying to sort of turn the marketing side of this to sort of promote themselves, and maybe somebody comes along and says, we've got a better deal, or why don't you come by us? What's the idea of GameStop being so public in all of this?
Yeah, it's interesting. When I first heard about the deal, my initial reaction was, that sounds like a PR stunt to me, not an actual thing. But when you look at it, there's they went and got a bank, a legitimate bank, TD, to put up a non-binding but potential commitment for $20 billion in debt financing. And when you're dealing with two publicly traded companies, as I looked at it, just thinking that the CEO is not going to mess around with the stock price of two publicly traded companies on something where there isn't anything actually real there. The SEC tends to frown on such things. You'll remember a couple of years back when Elon Musk made some statements that were not completely substantiated in his Twitter feed around the acquisition of Twitter, that the SEC came calling. So you can get in trouble if you do that. I don't think it's just a PR stunt. I think there's obvious major PR benefit. Here we are talking about it now. It's all over the news. Every business publication is, featuring it, discussing it. So there's definitely a PR benefit for the company. What the end game is for that, or where it heads, and maybe they're looking for, I think one thing that is possible here is they're looking for a third party to step up. When I say a third party, that might be, an individually highly rich individual, or it might be something like, say, a sovereign wealth fund from the Middle East, where a third party could step in and help provide the additional financing. So that's a possibility. They're kind of throwing it out there almost as a test balloon to see what else they can generate in terms of potential investors. So that's a possibility, but we really don't know what exactly is behind this just yet.
I got a couple minutes left with you, Professor. Fascinating conversation. Let's talk about GameStop, because they were left for dead, right? The short sellers were out and the vultures were flying around, and all of a sudden they caught fire with the quote-unquote meme stocks. The small guy came to the rescue of GameStop, and the stock shot up. It's been relatively stable, right around 22, 23 the last couple of years. So the people who sort of there's enough meme left in that meme stop. But did GameStop take this opportunity and sort of turn their business around? Were they a legitimate business before all this eBay conversation happened?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, the whole meme stock thing, if we dial back a few years, say, 2022, 2021, 22, some investors were able to make a lot of money by getting in at the right time. A lot of other people lost a lot of money when they came in at the wrong time, and the stock, tanked down from its meme stock highs. So there was a lot of volatility around that period that really didn't have to do with the fundamentals of the company itself. As to how they're doing, you look at the actual numbers, and GameStop has turned it around from a loss-making company to a profit-making company. Their movement toward collectibles seems to be gaining traction. It seems like it's almost a third of their revenue at this point, beyond the traditional sort of games and gaming hardware business that they had beforehand. So they do have a story here. They've closed 700 stores approximately in the last year or so. So they're getting rid of some of their underperforming retail locations. So for traditional retail metrics, you'd say some good signs there are happening for GameStop. The stock price hasn't, as you mentioned, really moved. So investors aren't sold on the story yet as a standalone, at least.
Yeah. Christopher Krohn is an adjunct professor of marketing at the University of Chicago Booth School of Business, talking about eBay and GameStop. And whether it turns out to be eBay or something else, it looks like GameStop is looking to make a deal, right? We can at least say that, right? They're looking to do something.
Oh, I think they would love to get the deal done if they could. That would be a very exciting thing for them. The question really is that going to be exciting to GameStop shareholders?
Yeah, there you go. Professor, thank you very much for a fun conversation. Have a good night.
You too. Have a good one.
Christopher Krohn with us, adjunct professor of marketing at the University of Chicago Booth School of Business, talking about GameStop and the story of them trying to buy eBay, a $12 billion company, trying to buy a $50 billion company. Watch this space. I have a feeling this is going to get more interesting as the days and weeks move on. America at Night, back in a moment.
From the heart of America, this is America at Night with McGraw Milhaven. Welcome to America at Night with McGraw Milhaven.
Sorry about that. Believe it or not, the New York Times won their fight. They sued to get Jeffrey Epstein's suicide note released. And earlier today, the note was released, and I'm looking at it right now in his own handwriting. Apparently, they have published the Jeffrey Epstein suicide note. He survived this incident, but was found dead weeks later at the age of 66. The note reads, quote, "They investigated me for a month, found nothing, exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point. It's a treat to be able to choose one's time to say goodbye. Want to watch me do, bust out crying, no fun, not worth it, exclamation point, exclamation point." So the ramblings of not a very mentally healthy person. But the note didn't really say anything, didn't learn anything, just sort of the ramblings of a man who was clearly in a deep depression. I should say that if you find yourself in a situation, please reach out for help. There is help available in your local area to talk to. Find someone to talk to, because it is this moment will pass, and we want you to be happy and healthy and work towards it. But try and find someone to talk to. So there you go. Felt a little weird talking about it, but just know that there are people who love you and want you to stay and find someone to talk to, please. And I thank you. All right, that's going to do it for us for this hour. Next hour, Johnny Appleseed is going to join us. Now, it's not Johnny Appleseed that died, but the man who walked the path of Johnny Appleseed has written a book called Johnny Appleseed, Walking the Path of Johnny Appleseed. We're going to talk to Isaac Fitzgerald. I've been looking forward to this for a while. I love American folklore, and I love American folk heroes. Johnny Appleseed, who was he, and why are we still talking about him today? We'll do that coming up here. Our executive director is Alex Hinton. Our engineer tonight is Richard Good. I'm McGraw Milhaven, and this is America at Night on Westwood One.
Westwood One presents America at Night. Here's your host, McGraw Milhaven.
Our guest tonight is Isaac Fitzgerald. He's a New York Times bestselling author. A couple years ago, was a great book called Dirtbag Massachusetts. He's also the author of a number of children's books. He appears frequently on the Today Show, and you've read him in the New York Times, the Atlantic, Esquire, GQ, just to name some of the places you read Isaac Fitzgerald. He is out with a brand new book that debuts this week. It's called American Rambler, Walking the Trail of Johnny Appleseed. Isaac Fitzgerald, I've been looking forward to this conversation. Welcome to America at Night.
McGraw, thank you so much for having me, brother. I'm so happy to be here.
I love the premise of the book. You decided to walk in the footsteps of Johnny Appleseed. What was the inspiration? Give me what were you thinking?
Well, so let me tell you, man, I was already, as I came to middle age, I was like in my late 30s, I was nearing 40, and I found myself walking more and more. Genuinely, at one point, I was walking 20,000 steps a day. That's almost 10 miles. And when I was growing up as a kid, my parents were huge walkers. So I recognized that even as throughout my life, I've kind of been like, oh no, I'm different than my parents. I'm trying to get away from my childhood. I was now, as I approached middle age, coming to be more and more like them. The other thing that was happening was I was talking to the sky a lot. That's what I called it at the time, talking to the sky. And eventually I admitted, no, what I'm doing is praying. And my parents really loved walking, and they were people of faith. And again, I lived that life of being like, no, I'm a little bit different. I'm different than that. And then there I was approaching middle age. I was walking a bunch and I was praying a bunch. And so basically I was trying to think about like, who were some of the great walkers? Who are some of the wonderful people in the world throughout history who have been people that love to walk and people of faith? And John Chapman, a real guy, Johnny Appleseed, he grew up. He was born in the 1700s, but like right down the street from where I grew up. And I was like, that is somebody I've been obsessed with since I was a child. And I was like, what if I just took off and followed the path that he followed through his entire life and just went out and saw the country at an eye level. And so that was the beginning of the idea. I wanted to follow this passion for walking that I had, this passion for faith that I had, and this interest that I had in Johnny Appleseed, who was a legend, but who was actually a real guy named John Chapman.
Isaac Fitzgerald, you tell the tale of America in the 21st century through Johnny Appleseed, right? I mean, that's your
right.
premise. But in
That's
reality,
right.
you walk the walk, and we'll get to the path, but you met America along the way. You got out of your car and get off the plane, and you met America.
Yeah, and one of the things that I was really excited to see was how much kindness, how much hospitality, everything that I was trying to do. I was trying to get away from the screens. I was trying to get away from my phone. I was trying to get away from my laptop. And I wanted to get out there and just be like, there's so much division in the world right now. Everything that's kind of fed to us is like everybody is, everything's turned up to 11. Let's go see what it's really like. And what I found was just so beautiful and just so kind and so welcoming. Don't get me wrong. There's going to be jerks everywhere. You know that, McGraw. There's always going to be a few jerks. But for the most part, I was just really not surprised, but I was really comforted by how much kindness I found out there in the country. And so I walked from Western Massachusetts into Western Pennsylvania, Ohio, Indiana. I drive a little bit. Let's be real. There's a lot of roads out there. You got to be safe. But what I did was met people and introduced myself and just really depended on the kindness of strangers. Johnny Appleseed never had an address, but he would sleep on strangers or friends' floors or out in the wilderness. And I made the same rule. There was no hotels. I was either going to sleep outside or if a stranger or a friend welcomed me into their home. And that's what I did.
Isaac Fitzgerald, the book is called American Rambler, Walking the Trail of Johnny Appleseed. A lot of people thought Johnny Appleseed was just a figment of someone's imagination. He was fake. He was a made-up character. Johnny Appleseed was a real guy, and did he really walk the country planting apple trees?
Okay, so this is a great question, because here's the deal. First off, let me ask you, McGraw, what's your favorite American legend?
Oh, we were talking about this today. John Henry. And
the best, right? John Henry, right. One of the best. And to be fair, there is some research that says that John Henry was at least an amalgamation of a bunch of stories. So while maybe not based on one actual real person, that legend is at least based on a premise of a few people who did similar things. And talk about a story that is prevalent today, right? A man versus technology, right? Trying to keep his job when something new, bright and shiny comes in, right? But John Henry, absolute best. Paul Bunyan, another one, but again, not a real guy. Pecos Bill, fantastic, not a real guy. Johnny Appleseed, this kind of like, he had faith. He's walking around. He's throwing apple seeds willy-nilly. He has a tin pot hat on his head. That's an American legend, but he was actually based on a real guy, and that guy's name was John Chapman. He was born in 1774, September 26th, in Leominster, Massachusetts. His father was a Minuteman. It was the Revolutionary War. We're talking 200. We're just approaching our 250th anniversary right now, right? He's born around that time, and he was a living dude. And the legends are based on some real parts of his life. But the fact of the matter is like he wasn't throwing seeds willy-nilly. He was planting orchards. He would usually partner with people in the area. He would build fences to protect the orchards from the animals. And at that time, that was actually kind of almost a way of land speculation. But he also had this faith. So despite the fact that he kept accumulating land on paper, he never had any interest in the wealth or kind of the the worldly goods that could have provided him. He always slept outside. He was always preaching, and he was very, very interested in basically community and walking. He loved animals, so he never rode a horse. So that's the thing. The legend is based on real facts from his life, but he himself was a very complex, real person who lived into his 70s and made it all the way to Fort Wayne, Indiana.
We're going to find out more. The book is called American Rambler, Walking the Trail of Johnny Appleseed. Isaac Fitzgerald, New York Times best-selling author. You've also seen him on the Today Show. He writes and is very well respected. This book's getting a lot of attention already, rocketing up the charts. The book is out on May 12th. American Rambler with Isaac Fitzgerald. America at Night. Back in a moment.
America at Night with McGraw Milhaven. Join the nightly conversation. America at Night with McGraw Milhaven.
Isaac Fitzgerald is a New York Times best-selling author. He's on the Today Show all the time. You read him in all sorts of places. He's out with a brand new book called American Rambler, Walking the Trail of Johnny Appleseed. Isaac, take me through the kindness of strangers. You really met up with strangers, and they offered you a bed or a cot in their home, and you gladly accepted?
Oh, absolutely. McGraw, I went out into the world, and again, Johnny Appleseed, he made his way west, and he was always basically he would either sleep in the woods, sleep on his own, or he would depend on the kindness of strangers who eventually, because sometimes he would walk seasonally, almost in circles, he would come across people who were strangers, and then they'd become acquaintances, and then eventually friends. As he got older, I won't lie, some people used to even build parts of their house. They would build a room off their house just for him to stay in. Although one place they literally built it, but they didn't have a door that led inside to the house because he lived outside a lot and he didn't smell that great. And that's the truth. That's a true story. That is factual story. That's not legend. That's real. So I personally tried not to be that much of a nuisance when I stayed with folks, but I went out to Warren, Pennsylvania. I went out to different places in Ohio, Mansfield, Ohio, and I would be road weary. Sometimes I'd be walking for many, many miles, and many times, not just once, not just twice, many times, people would strike up a conversation with me. I'd strike up a conversation with them. We'd get to talking. I'd kind of tell them this kind of crazy thing. Oh, what are you doing? Well, I'm kind of following the ghost of Johnny Appleseed. I'm out here looking for America. And more than numerous occasions, people would be like, oh, I have a couch. I have a place that you can stay. You know, if you want to just come crash, I'll make you a pot of coffee in the morning. And that happened so many times. And what I loved about it is that we have this view of America. Oh, we used to be this way. It used to be like this, but now things are different. But when you get out there into the country, things are very, very similar, I found. There's so many people who have open hearts and have open hospitality, open kindness, just like a desire to put a roof over somebody else's head. We like to hang out with each other. We like to take care of one another when given the opportunity. And that was one of the best things that I found.
Did you have any close calls? Did you have anybody who said, maybe not, thank you very much, but I'm going to keep walking?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Some people were more tolerant than kind, for sure. And even on more than one occasion, I ran into some rough situations. But again, 9 times out of 10, it was always kindness. Now, don't get me wrong. Warren, Pennsylvania, I can tell you right now, there was a bar. It was the only place that was open by the time I rolled into town. I went to that bar. Fantastic place, great people, but I was asking a lot of questions. I was just, I was trying to meet folks. And one person definitely turned to me and said, "Are you a cop?" And I was like, "Am I a cop?" And she's like, "Are you a cop?" And I was like, "Why would you, what?" And she's like, "You're asking a lot of questions." And that led to a bit of a situation, but I got my way out of it because I was like, "Do you not like cops?" And she said, "I don't like cops. I don't know." And I was like, that is a fair enough. That is a fair enough answer. But again, it gets back to this idea of kind of fellowship and community. One of the things about walking, it's a very lonely endeavor. And that's what Johnny Appleseed, that's what John Chapman was doing. He was going on these long solo journeys, but he also had the juxtaposition of loving community. He would go, he would always kind of proselytize. He would like to meet people. And so that's one of the things that is very interesting about his story. One other thing, if you allow me, and then
Sure.
I'm sorry, I'll stop monologuing.
No, you're good.
I think is so important about this is there's the Disneyfication of the story of Johnny Appleseed. All the apples, he's throwing them willy-nilly, and he's planting them so that we can make apple pies and apple tarts and apples for the horses and applesauce. But the fact of the matter is all those apples and where he got those seeds, it was all down to one thing, and that was alcoholic cider and Applejack, a hard liquor. Because at the time, it was hard to find potable water. So we have this kind of new idea of this legend where it was all very, very wholesome. And don't get me wrong, a lot of it is wholesome. But the fact of the matter is a lot of this apple product that he was dealing in was very much about the alcohol that was being consumed at that time period. So a lot of my ramblings, a lot of my walkings, and a lot of where I found most people with kindness, some people with rough edges, was going out into some of my favorite places, which are bars based on what you could call pubs, right? Which just means public house, a place for people to gather, like a church, like a baseball stadium, a place where communities come together.
So Johnny Appleseed spent his life giving the gift of alcohol around the country. No wonder he was so well received by these people.
To quote the great Michael Pollan, a fantastic author, in his book, The Botany for Desire, he calls John Chapman, Johnny Appleseed, American Dionysus. You're exactly right. No, wouldn't you give your couch? Oh, this guy's bringing over some good stuff.
I want to talk more about Johnny Appleseed, and I want to talk more about you and what you discovered. It is a fascinating conversation. Isaac Fitzgerald, our guest. But take me through, I got about 3 minutes left in this segment, and then we'll hold you over for the next segment. But the book is called American Rambler. Tell the tale. You visited the last known tree that Johnny Appleseed planted?
Listen, okay, so there's a place. It's in Ohio, Savannah, Ohio, Nova, Ohio. It's near Mansfield. It's this great, great, great county. And I go to this place called Allegro Farm. And I'm telling you, I'm not lying, McGraw. I just looked it up. I didn't email ahead. I didn't call ahead. I did an old-fashioned drop-in. I just pulled the car up into the driveway of this beautiful, picturesque farm. I get out. I go. I knock on the door. And the first words out of my mouth, woman opens the door, are just like, "Hey, I'm so sorry. I don't mean to bother you. I can come back later. I'm working on a book. I'm working on a story about Johnny Appleseed. You've got this last tree that was planted by him. It's still alive." I was totally expecting her to be like, "Yeah, get out of here. Come back some later date," if I was lucky. Instead, her name was Patty. She just said, "Come on in. Come on in." She poured me a bunch of lemonade. We got to iced tea. She opened up her whole home. She talked to me for hours. And the story is so his particular type of Christianity, which again, 1800s, you know how nowadays you got startups, McGraw? You know how you've got like there's internet websites and all that?
Sure.
Yeah, in the 1800s, starting a new version of Christianity was kind of the startup of the day. There were all these different interpretations that were happening, and he happened to be a Swedenborg. And I get into it in the book. I won't bore you with it here because we only got another minute. But genuinely, there was a preacher in that area, so he would come by every year to meet with that preacher, and he would plant trees there. And Patty still had the soil is so rich that tree is still right there in their front yard, and it's actually spread out 2 separate trees. And in the 90s, people used to come in buses just to check them out. And she's been fixing up the farm, and she's hoping that people come back to visit. And that's why she was so excited that I was swinging by, and that's why she opened up to me. And it was a beautiful conversation.
How's the cider from the Johnny Appleseed tree? Does she make the
Let me
American
tell you,
cider?
I did not drink any alcohol cider from her tree.
Hold that thought. Hold that thought. I want to hear this story. Isaac Fitzgerald, our guest. The book is called American Rambler, New York Times best-selling author. His brand new book out. It comes out May 12th, already rocketing up all of the bestseller lists. American Rambler, Isaac Fitzgerald, America at Night. Back in a moment.
Coming to you from the heart of the nation, this is America at Night with McGraw Milhaven. This is America at Night with McGraw Milhaven.
Rediscovering Johnny Appleseed, our guest rediscovered America. Isaac Fitzgerald is our guest. New York Times best-selling author is out with a new book. By the way, publisher is Knopf, and it's called American Rambler, Walking the Trail of Johnny Appleseed. Real quick, I want to get back to that story we were talking about. The woman who has the last known Johnny Appleseed tree, she does make apple cider from the apples in that tree?
No.
Okay.
I'm saying I wish she did. I wish she did. But no, her name's Patty. What she does is she does make some mean lemonade, some mean iced tea, and she's got a lot of wonderful stories about that farm and about basically her great-great-grandmother telling her about when John Chapman, like basically her great-great-grandmother used to tell her great-great-aunt, and the great-great-aunt told the aunt and then told her about when John Chapman used to come and visit. And that's another thing that just so captured my imagination are all these different stories that we tell each other, right? All these different stories that make up what become history. And that's part of the book too, is trying to separate what's legend, what's story, what's truth, and what's fact. And so that's one of the other threads that cuts through the book is I'm exploring Johnny Appleseed's story. I'm exploring John Chapman's story. I'm exploring America. And I'm also exploring my own family's story and trying to figure out, what was real, what was legend, and the stories that kind of we all have these family stories, right? Where you're trying to figure out what was actually going on versus like what's maybe a greater truth that we get at with that kind of bullshit story your uncle tells you, And so that's another part of the book as well.
We should say that you had a rough childhood growing up. At one point, you were homeless, correct?
That's correct. So I was raised in the Catholic Worker, which is a great organization, still works to this day. And I was raised in inner city Boston, and I was raised in a housing situation for the unhoused, and then eventually a halfway house that was run by the Catholic Worker. And yeah, my parents had a real rough run of it. And on paper, you would think those were probably the toughest years of my life. But actually, I was surrounded by a lot of community, a lot of well-meaning people. But after that, we moved to a farm in north central Massachusetts. And that's where things got a little tougher, a little more lonely.
Isaac Fitzgerald, when you started this process, did you already map it out? Did you have the route, or did you sort of figure it out along the way?
Absolutely, McGraw, I appreciate that. And I like that you think that I might be the person that might do that. But no, I absolutely really was flying by the seat of my pants. The book opens with me looking up this place that's called the Johnny Appleseed Trail. And I'm like, oh, okay, I'll just go hike that trail. It looks to be about 30 miles. I arrive at the head of the trail, which is a rest stop. The person that drove me there drops me off and drives off. All of a sudden, I realize I'm talking to a woman inside, and I'm just like, where's the head of the trail? And she's like, what do you mean? And I said, the Johnny Appleseed Trail. This is in Massachusetts. And she just says, that's just what we call this section of highway. This is to attract tourists. This is not like, and she's looking at my bag, and all of a sudden I realize she's also realizing that I got dropped off. There's no way out of this place without a car. But luckily, I found a little hole in the fence in the back, and I decided to hoof it. And I still did. I still did the 30 miles by the side of highways in people's backyards, and that was very much kind of the start of the journey. Can I ask, McGraw, can I ask you, do you have a favorite, like, traveling book? Fiction, nonfiction, like on the road? I mean, I would even argue Fellowship of the Ring counts. Like, what's a favorite walking or road travel book for you?
Yeah, that's a good point. Actually, back in the day, I loved my Rand McNally. I just like to look at maps.
Yeah, that's my man. But that's what I'm talking about, man. That's like it's a very American thing to want to just take to the road, right? There's this one. I mean, that's what Chapman was feeling all the way back in the 1700s. There's this want to kind of just take off, and that was. Did I follow an actual plan? Not much of one, other than I was gonna go where John Chapman went. But for the most part, what I was really being driven by was that great, in these books that we love growing up, or even like you just said, just looking at a big map and you're just like, I just want to go. And that's what I did.
Isaac Fitzgerald, I'm sure there were nights where you slept on the road, you slept out in the stars.
Yeah.
Did you bring a tent? Yeah. Where'd you go to the bathroom? How did you survive?
Now we're asking the real questions. Listen, I slept under a lot of bridges. I slept under the stars. I slept on some strangers' floors. I slept in some friends' houses. I had a tent. I will not lie, though. One of the things that I was not great at was setting up camp. So I can get a tent situated. But especially the whole book, kind of the way I break it up is it starts in spring, it moves on to summer, it moves on to fall, and then winter is the epilogue. But by fall, it was a really rainy fall, and I tried to get good at like setting up the rain shell and setting up a tarp, but I never really was. So if I'm being real honest, most of the time that I was in a tent, water was dripping in. It was a tough situation. But one of the best places I slept was Mount Vernon, Ohio, after a 36 plus mile hike. I was going from Mansfield to Mount Vernon, which was a hike that Chapman did in his life, a very famous hike. He was the Paul Revere of the War of 1812. There's more to that story, but what you need to know is I went on this hike. I was so exhausted by the time I got into town. I didn't even have it in me to meet somebody or try to figure something out. I just went and I slept under this bridge. The next morning I woke up, and this is not like I will text you the photos, McGraw. I woke up the next morning and there was a bald eagle on a branch, not that high above my head, and I just got to watch it hunt for breakfast as it grabbed fish out of the river. It was amazing.
So you put down the phone, you got out of the car, you got off the plane, and you walked and you rediscovered America.
And what I'm telling you is that it's such a big, beautiful country. There's so much, you have to spend money to go do this or go do that. And don't get me wrong, I love going to the movies like anybody else. but there's so much great nature. I get it. We all have our bucket list items. Okay, go to the Grand Canyon, go see the Golden Gate Bridge. Of course, go do that. But every single state has state forests and there are national parks. There's so many smaller, more beautiful places that you can go visit if you just get out of your routine a little bit. And that, I hope that is the thesis that people connect to in this book.
The book is called American Rambler, Walking the Trail of Johnny Appleseed. Isaac Fitzgerald, our guest. Did you come to any realization about your childhood? Were you able to put it in a compartment to understand it a little better?
Yeah, I mean, listen, one of the things that this whole trip gave me, and I think also just maturing, I think a lot of us can understand this, is I have a lot more empathy for my parents. I understand how hard it is, especially if you don't have a lot, how hard it is to raise a family, how hard it is to be a dedicated father or mother, and how hard it is to kind of try to scrape together a life. And I think when I was a kid, I had a lot of questions around. There was some violence in the household. There was arguments, but as you get older, you start to realize, like, listen, life is complicated and people are nuanced. My first book, Dirtbag Massachusetts, really focuses on the more difficult parts of my childhood. This book, it really is born of what I was saying at the beginning. These long walks and camping trips and canoe trips that my parents used to take me on when I was young. So it allowed me to give my parents this more three-dimensional look. And so that was one aspect of it. But another aspect of it is that it's, life kind of keeps going. And my mother got stuck in a tough situation taking care of her mother, who lived to the age of 101. And again, really another core part of the book, I hope, is empathy, recognizing that we're all struggling and we're all working really hard to try and take care of one another. That's this other really important part. Our families, of course, but also people take care of each other's that aren't just in their immediate circle. And so it's that was something that I realized. My parents' love of community and love of watching out for one another and love of taking care of each other, that's something I rediscovered on the road. And the more I saw it, the more I was reminded of the better parts of my childhood.
American Rambler is the book, Walking the Trail of Johnny Appleseed. It's interesting how the kindness of strangers reminds you of the kindness of your family, right? The kindness of strangers and the empathy you found in total, complete strangers sort of helped you rediscover and put your own family life into perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. And made me, I have nieces and nephews now. I'm very proud uncle, and it's a part of wanting to be present and be in the moment with the people that you're with the people that you love, be a part of your community. Like that, that's another premise of the book, is there's so much space in this country. Go to a space, or if you're already there, if you've already set up a home, if you've already set up a place to live, join that community and start building some stuff. I really think in this modern era, there's so much focus on who's the best, who's number one. Like, let's pretend you play piano. Well, people can go online and find the best pianist, right? People can, there's all this other stuff that you can watch on the screen. But nothing beats just going down to a local joint and hearing somebody play piano. Nothing beats those kind of small community moments. And that's something that I loved. Chapman used to roll into town and he would do some preaching, and it became what was going on that night. People would come out of their houses. They would gather. And that's a real core part of this book, is a focus on fellowship, a focus on community, and making sure, don't get me wrong, every once in a while, of course, we're all going to be focused on one big national thing. But if you get back into your local communities, you're going to find so much worth living for. And it's a guiding light once you start really connecting with it.
Yeah. American Rambler, Isaac Fitzgerald, if you could ask Johnny Appleseed a question, what would you ask him?
Oh my man. There's the story, if you don't mind, real quick, the story of his death is he dies in Fort Wayne, Indiana. It's something else fascinating about him is he was always moving westward, mainly because as people settled the country, it would get too civilized for him. And so he's always kind of walking in these circles, seasonal circles, always going west. And he made it to his 70s. Walking that much is very healthy. And he made it into his 70s, which was an incredible age for the time. And he passed away on some acquaintances' floor. And they said that he seemed so happy because he was going on to what he believed was going to be his next step in life, which was this afterlife, which was heaven. And if I could ask him one question now, I would ask him, what do you believe is the best way to live in the service of others? Because I think that was such an important part of what he did and his driving force. And I would like to think that he could look at the day that we're living in now. And I would ask him to look at everything that's going on right now. How would you live in the service of others? How would you bring that kind of community to people now? And I would love to know his answer.
Isaac Fitzgerald, the book is called American Rambler, Walking the Trail of Johnny Appleseed. You are married, and your wife must be a saint to let you take a trip like this.
Now we're, all right, listen, John Chapman, an American saint. Johnny Appleseed, an American legend. Kelly Farber, we were dating at the beginning of this year, and somehow, through the course of this year, despite the fact that I was on the road, living outside, that's a big arc of the book, and I appreciate you bringing it up, man, because for me, my whole life, like you said, I grew up in a homeless shelter. I was genuinely always kind of a rambling, gambling man. I went to so many different schools in my childhood. Then I become an adult. I lived in so many different places. I never signed a lease. Every single place I lived, it was like a handshake agreement or a friend of a friend. And my whole life has been built around this idea that I love getting out in the world. I love traveling. I love bouncing around. But part of the thread of this book is me recognizing I maybe don't want to die on an acquaintance's floor. I maybe do want more stability in my life. I maybe do want more of a home. And that really started with my girlfriend at the beginning of the book, my now wife, Kelly, and recognizing, and just to be clear, McGraw, you're from Long Island originally, right?
Yes, yes.
So we have built our home on Long Island. And that has been so meaningful to me, to recognize as much as I love adventure, there's other types of adventure. And part of that is the bravery almost to admit, hey, I think not only do I want stability, but I think I deserve stability.
Yeah, good for you. Isaac Fitzgerald, the book is called American Rambler, Walking the Trail of Johnny Appleseed, New York Times best-selling writer. He also frequents the Today Show. Isaac, I'm glad you found what you were looking for. Take care of that wife. And when you walk into a bar in Long Island, don't start asking questions right away. Buy a couple drinks first and then start asking a couple questions.
No, this is can I ask real quick before I lose you, brother?
Yes,
where in Long Island did you grow up?
A town called Manhasset up on the North Shore.
Beautiful, beautiful,
Yeah.
beautiful. Well, I hope we meet in person at one point. Thank you for having me on the show. You were fantastic.
Isaac Fitzgerald, congratulations with the book. Be safe. American Rambler. America at Night. Back in a moment.
America at Night with McGraw Milhaven, where the nation comes to talk.
What do you guys think?
This is America at Night with McGraw Milhaven.
All right, we are done for hour number 2. I don't know where the hour went. The book is called American Rambler, Walking the Trail of Johnny Appleseed. Isaac Fitzgerald was our guest. Book comes out on May 12th, and as I said, it's rocketing up the charts. All right, next hour, it's open phones, whatever your little heart desires. Don't forget, this whole show gets turned into a podcast. It's a radio show and a podcast. So we're cool and uncool all at the same time. So we're uncool. Oh, you listen to radio. Oh, my goodness, you're weird. Oh, wait, it's a podcast? Oh, wait, you're cool. So here's what you do. Go to where all podcasts are found and just subscribe to America at Night. And you can get the show each and every night. In fact, if you miss a show, if you want to go back and listen to it again, you want to send it to somebody else, we love our radio. We love our interaction. We love the phone calls. We love the text messages. But, of course, the podcast is there for you as well. Text Fine is opened as well as the phones. 1-844-2-McGraw, 1-844-262-4729. We're back on the flip side with your phone calls and text messages. Our executive director is Alex Hinton. Our engineer tonight is Richard Good. I'm McGraw Milhaven, and this is America at Night on Westwood One.
Westwood One presents America at Night. Here's your host, McGraw Milhaven.
It's open phones, 1-844-2-McGraw, 1-844-262-4729. Text line is open. Phone lines are open. We have a couple of lines open for you. I want to take a minute tonight and talk about Ted Turner, the mouth of the South, who passed away today. Ted Turner, and in all of the eulogies and all the talking, it was all about CNN and the 24-hour news channels that he created. And don't get me wrong, that's a huge legacy for Ted Turner. But there's a story that I think most of people are forgetting about Ted Turner. And yes, I know he was married to Jane Fonda, and yes, I know he bought thousands and thousands and thousands of acres and helped the bison and all of that. I know he was a big liberal. I get it, all of those things. But before all of that, and yes, he did win the America's Cup as a yachtsman, and he bumbled and stumbled on something that people didn't realize how brilliant it really was. Go all the way back to 1976. Before CNN, before the 24-hour news channels, before all of that, before he was Ted Turner, he bought a local television station in Atlanta, and it was called WTCG. And it was an independent, from what I understand, it was an independent television station in Atlanta. Now, every single market in America has these, right? You had the NBC affiliate, you had the ABC affiliate, you had the CBS affiliate, and then you had one or two sort of independent stations. I grew up in New York. It was WPIX, it was WOR, but every station's got those third and fourth channels that were kind of independent, and they would kind of, run reruns of I Love Lucy, and maybe they'd have some type of, some had some news, but local news, and some didn't. And it was, right, it was sort of and oftentimes a lot of these stations aired the local TV. Growing up in New York, WOR had the Mets and WPIX had the Yankees at the time. Now it's all changed around, but whatever. So Ted Turner buys WTCG and apparently lobbies the FCC and the cable stations. He changes the letters from WTCG and he changes it to WTBS. And he puts it on this newfangled cable in 1976. Well, now he has a television station that's going to go all around the country on this newfangled cable, which nobody really quite understands what cable is, but Ted Turner sees the future. And Ted Turner goes along and buys the Atlanta Braves. I think it was for the unheard of sum at the time of $12 million, if memory serves me right. It might have been 12, might have been $13 million. That was in 1976. I think the Yankees in 1973 sold for $10 million to George Steinbrenner. And in 1980, so 4 years later, after 76, the Mets sold for, I think, $20 million. But anyway, so Ted Turner buys the Braves. He doesn't buy it because he's the biggest baseball fan in the world. He buys it because he's got to put something on cheap on TBS. And so Ted Turner takes this baseball team that he buys and puts the games on TBS. Well, it's not just played in Atlanta. It's played all over the country. And all of a sudden, the owners were like, well, this is the dumbest thing in the world. Why would somebody in North Platte, Nebraska, care about the Atlanta Braves? But whatever. All of a sudden, because it was on, people started watching TBS, and people started watching baseball. And it became a thing. And there are Braves fans scattered throughout the country because, okay, maybe in New York, you could watch the Mets or the Yankees. But if you're in Ottumwa, Iowa, you really couldn't watch any baseball. But you got cable, and all of a sudden, the Braves are on every day. And so you became a Braves fan. And the ratings were solid, and the ratings were great. The Braves were terrible. There was, 1,500 people in the stadium, but there were more people watching on TV because it was on. And the genius of Ted Turner was that he bought the TV station and needed cheap content. So he bought the Braves for $12 million and put them on the TV station, beamed it around the world, and that was the beginning of his genius. Now it makes perfect sense, right? That was before, you had maybe Monday Night Baseball on ABC, but that changed the world again. So Ted Turner was a man, right? He could see around the corner. That is for sure. And story that wasn't really told all day today. I was kind of shocked. It was all about the cable news networks, and now you have 4 different news networks, right? The theory was, how are we going to fill up one 24-hour news channel? Well, now we've got 5. We got CNN, we got MSNBC, we got Fox, we got News Nation, right? I mean, that's 4 right there. But buying TBS and then turning it into a superstation on cable, and then buying the Braves for content, quite frankly, a stroke of genius. All right, that's my story on Ted Turner. Never met the man, never interviewed him, but an interesting guy nonetheless. 1-844-2-McGraw, 1-844-262-4729. Here's what we're going to do. We got a couple phone calls, a couple of text messages coming in. We'll take a quick break. We'll go to the phones right after that. America at Night, back in a moment.
Join the conversation. Call 844-2-McGraw. America at Night with McGraw Milhaven. Relax. You're listening to America at Night with McGraw Milhaven.
Absolutely. Relax. You're listening to America at Night, just like the woman said. 1-844-2-McGraw, 1-844-262-4729. Michelle, first-timer in Washington. Welcome to America at Night. Hello. Michelle, are you there? Oh, Michelle. Technically, she's still a first-timer if she doesn't talk. Michelle going once. Michelle going twice. All right, put her on hold. We'll see if we go back. Let's go to Catherine in Vancouver. Catherine, welcome to America at Night.
Hey.
Hi.
Hi. In the 60s, my dad used to coach hockey. And one night when we were watching the playoffs here, when we almost got the cup, he told me this wild story, and it blew my mind. He said that he was there at the game when they started in Vancouver waving the white towel. And he said, we started it in Vancouver. So, and he was there. He saw it. So I thought that was a kind of cool story.
Starting the white towel at a hockey game.
Yeah, he saw everybody in the audience.
Right.
Twirling the white towel around. And we started that thing.
Yeah, I mean, didn't the Steelers have the terrible towel? Didn't the Steelers sort of start that?
I don't know, but Dad said that, so everyone wants to claim it's theirs.
Well, if
if
Dad said it's true, it's got to be true.
Well, yeah, he was there. Daddy-O's always right.
Gotta love you. All right, thanks, Catherine. Have yourself a good night. Tim in Washington, welcome to America at Night.
Yeah, hey, I don't really agree with Catherine at all, but there is some truth to what she's saying about the white towel on the top of the hockey stick and the frustration of the coach.
All right, I'll check it out. I believe you.
Okay, so here's a different take on the Iran war.
Okay.
And I sat on this and stewed on it for a day, and I watched this podcast. And it was 5 military guys, and I wish I could definitively reference it, but they were talking about what the next move will be in the Iran war.
Okay.
And they were all military guys, and, take hard, bomb heavily, don't rule out ground troops, yada, yada, yada. And the fifth guy says, I think that they're going to let the ceasefire expire. And then, be it a legitimate threat or a false flag, Israel is going to come in and do a lot of damage.
Okay.
I don't think that's totally unrealistic about Israel coming in.
Mm-hmm. So, well, right now, I would say they're working in conjunction with the United States, I think, for the most part. You think that, we're going to declare this ceasefire or some type of one-page agreement to call things off and continue negotiating, and then Israel's going to come in and start throwing bombs around?
Well, I don't think this one-page agreement, amendment, whatever, 3 steps, I don't think that's going to work out.
Okay.
And I think somehow, one way or another, and I don't know, I think there's some credibility, whether it be a false flag by Israel or something like that Israel just comes in and says, okay, we're getting the job done.
Yeah. So you're telling me that who knows? I don't know. I find it hard to believe that Israel would go on alone by itself without the United States. But, anything's possible. We'll wait and see what happens.
I don't think they would. I think they would have, in some way or another, they would probably have our backing.
Oh, you think so? Well, right, but they would go it alone. We would let them, or we would give them the tacit approval. Go ahead and do what you want to do, but we'll be on the sidelines?
Mostly on the sidelines.
Yeah, interesting. I don't know. I don't see it, but, who knows?
I don't know.
It's the future.
Just saying, that guy made the point.
All right, good to know. Tim, thanks. Let's go to Michelle, who's back in Washington. Still a first-timer. Michelle, welcome to America at Night.
Thank you, McGraw. Can you hear me now?
You can hear you loud and clear. Thanks for calling in.
Oh, good. I'm a 78-year-old lady who just loves the old movies, and I was prompted to call you by your wonderful discussion on Monday night of Star Wars. And incidentally, I love your program for the wide variety of cultural things you cover. I mean, it's fascinating. And
well, thank you.
I haven't heard a program this interesting in a long time. I wanted to say to you that your talk about Star Wars, which will be 50 years old in 2027 next year.
Right.
Star Wars, when I first saw it, the year it came out in '77, I was in line in the theater, one of the first people to ever see it, I guess. And I had been captivated by science fiction heroes since I was in kindergarten. And I used to come home from school while my parents were working, and I'd turn on the TV and watch the old movie serials, the chapter plays. And they were still producing a few of them in 1953 when I was in kindergarten. But the most famous serials of all time in the public's mind then, and even perhaps now among the old-timers like me, is Flash Gordon with Buster Crabbe. I'm not talking about the 1980 remake. I'm talking about the chapter plays. And there were 3 of them, and they were very similar to Star Wars in many ways. And Buster Crabbe was an Olympic gold medal swimmer in Los Angeles in 1928, and then he began a movie career. He was incredibly handsome and strong and fast, incredible, probably the best athlete in some ways, at least the most versatile one that ever appeared in the movies. I know many good ones have, like Johnny Weissmuller, but I have to tell you, Flash Gordon was made, the first serial the feature version of it was called Space Soldiers, but it was just called Flash Gordon. And that was in 1936. And the next one in 38 was Flash Gordon's Trip to Mars. And in 1940, Flash Gordon Conquers the Universe. And these were made by Universal, one of the leading serial makers. And Flash Gordon starred Buster Crabbe, and his co-stars were Gene Rogers as Dale Arden. And it was a 2-year-old comic strip when that first serial came out.
But hold on a second.
Then,
but the whole idea of Star Wars, right? Wasn't that Star Wars sort of an ode to all those sort of serials and science fiction sort of shows?
It was. Yeah. And I have met many serial actors and makers back in the 70s and 80s when they were still kicking around. And I'm nationally known for my knowledge of serials and American pop culture. And I have to tell you, though, Charles Middleton played Ming the Merciless. Probably he was a very famous villain, appeared in hundreds of movies. Frank Shannon played Dr. Zarkov. And those are the 4 main characters in the serial. There were many, supporting characters.
You really do know your serials.
This was I do. This was the very first time that a science fiction, there had been earlier science fiction serials, but this was the first one with a famous hero. And unlike Star Wars was new to the vast majority of people because the comic books came out from Marvel the same year the movie did. And I believe that there was 1 or 2 earlier paperback books in 76, all my memory.
Yeah, actually, you bring up a good point, Michelle, and I got to cut you off because we're short on a break here. But the superhero movies today all came from some type of comic book strip. Star Wars was its own universe, right? There wasn't a comic book beforehand, right? George Lucas just sort of created Star Wars on his own as a one-off, and then filmed it, which makes it different. But I can't believe that it caught fire the way it did. And I watched it again, as I said the other night, for the first time since I saw it in the movie theater in the 1970s. And God love you, God, I love movies that some people don't understand. It goes right over my head. I don't get the other fascination, but I love people who do.
Well, I'll give you. I met Buster Crabbe in 1970, and he told me. I'll give you one quick sentence.
Real quick, Michelle, I am out of time for this segment. I am a slave to the clock. Call back some other night, and we can talk more. Michelle, first timer from Washington, love it. Good stuff. All right, stay right there. More 1-844-2-McGraw or 1-844-262-4729. America at Night. Back in a moment.
Relax. You're listening to America at Night with McGraw Milhaven. back to America at Night. Call now, 844-262-4729. That's 844-2-McGraw.
All right, let's go. Let's go to some text messages because we got a whole bunch of text messages. I've been falling down on the job. This one's from Illinois. Another great 3 hours of radio. God bless. Thank you. Here's another one from Illinois. Have Michelle on as a guest for the whole half hour. Boy, she knew her cereals, didn't she? Man, that was an education. In Wisconsin, sorry to hear about Ted Turner. I loved watching the Braves and the Hawks as a kid. And the old show reruns, and then later Larry King, I was in heaven. Yeah, I forgot about the Atlanta Hawks. He then bought the Atlanta Hawks, put them on TBS. Again, cheap content to run on TBS back in the olden days. Yeah, it was all about the Braves and the Hawks, and then they would have whatever, old syndicated sitcom on in between games. Here's one from Vancouver. Man, I love this story about Johnny Appleseed. West Columbia, South Carolina, you killed it on the Johnny Appleseed interview. Thank you very much. That's an interview where I could only mess it up. You just get out of the way and you let him go. Pennsylvania from the 412. Fascinating subjects that are both educational and entertaining. Keep up the great work. Thank you very much, Pennsylvania. Here's somebody in St. Albans, Vermont. If it's Taco Tuesday, it's Taco Tuesday in the Strait of Hormuz. A little snark coming out of Vermont. Robert in New Haven, Connecticut. Robert, welcome to America at Night.
Yes, thank you for taking my call. I like the variety of callers and R2, D2, and Chewbacca. That's but can I give great news of confidence? I'll give you great news of confidence for all the U.S. taxpayers.
Okay.
How many trillions of dollars we're in debt? Like I think 30 trillion, if not more.
I think it's 32 trillion, and our national debt just surpassed 100% of our GDP.
Yeah, and I just this is from just a little bit of confidence. This is from Taxpayers for Common Sense. It's a website, and it says right here about 58% of the material the Pentagon possesses, which is $36.9 billion worth, are items it does not need. But then it gets even better.
Well, that's hard to quantify. How do you know you don't need it?
How about this? Well, the GAO, the Government Accounting, whatever GAO testimony follows a March report by the Office of Defense Department Inspector General that concluded that the Pentagon books were in such disarray that they couldn't be audited. In fact, the Pentagon books are such poor shape that the military's money managers last year made almost $7 trillion in adjustments to their financial ledgers.
Yeah. Do you remember during the Biden? Do you remember during the Biden administration they just wanted an accounting of all the money going to the Ukraine? What happened to that? What happened to that story? Yeah. No. Look.
But it's I'm a trophy.
Look. You can't spend that much money without some of it being wasted. And what you might think is waste, somebody else thinks is vital. But the point is this: our national debt is at more than 100% of GDP. That means that we now are going to have to borrow more money, and with rates and interest rates going up and no end in sight, it's going to cost us more money. We've crossed some type of Rubicon. Neither party is fiscally responsible. Neither party cares about the deficit. Remember how much people were complaining about the debt when Clinton was in office, right? Now it's 4 times what it was then. And now people don't care about it. It's the Congress has, and the president and the presidency and the officials have lost their mind. And we sit here and squabble and yell and scream about what? I don't know. Whatever. While they spend us into the poorhouse. and they, blame each other. It's kind of embarrassing. Anything else, Robert?
Yeah, I don't want to interrupt you. I'm sorry, but what other country would let somebody borrow money when they pretty much, not saying we're bullies around the world, but I don't think China's going to let us borrow any more money. I don't think the Saudis will. Who's going to let us borrow more money? Who do you think?
Watch the bond market, because it's all financed on the bond market. And if the rates have to go up to entice more people to buy our debt, that's when you'll know we're in trouble. Watch the bond market. Robert in New Haven, thanks for the phone call. Let's go to Tony is in Montreal. Tony, welcome to America at Night.
How you doing, McGraw?
Hi, Tony. I'm doing fine. Thanks for checking in.
Thank you. Every time I call, I was going to speak about John Vaillant. He's an American, supposedly Canadian writer. He wrote Fire Weather. It's about the fires in northern Alberta, and I was going to compare him to Patrick Moore, who was the founder of Greenpeace, who believes in a sustainability approach to the climate crisis, where he talks about environment, social concerns, economic concerns, and it says they're all priorities, just not one agenda. Anyway, that's boring. So I said, why not? Let's talk about the Expos. The Expos, because one of your callers said was talking about your love for baseball. On April the 8th, 1969, the Expos opened their inaugural game in Shea Stadium against your team and beat you guys 11-10. And the history of our team is that the Rochester Blackbirds came to Canada in 1897. Prior to that, we had a team in 1890, a Montreal team. I don't know the name of it, but it then evolved into playing in the International League for 5 years. And then after 5 years, the team died. And then there was a search. And in 1895, they tried to have a new team. It didn't work. But the team from Rochester Blackbirds came and became the Montreal which was the Montreal Royals. And they stuck around for 20 years until the Dodgers bought them, I believe, in 1928. The Dodgers, the Brooklyn Dodgers. And then they stuck around to 1960. They won 3 Junior World Series. Duke Snider, Roy Campanella, superstars like that played on those teams. I believe that Tommy Lasorda was also on that team.
Yeah,
we have a long history.
Well, you also have a long history, and then we mentioned a couple nights ago, Jackie Robinson played on that team. And then when the Expos came in, the Expos had a great run, man. They had some great teams. Some heartbreak along the way. And wasn't it even one of the strike year where they sort of took the leader of the first and the leader of the second? Didn't they have like the best record in baseball or something? But the Expos got gypped out of a couple of different playoff runs. But they drafted well. They played well. They had great teams. Sort of a tragedy what happened to the Montreal Expos.
So you're talking about 1994 when Andre Dawson, Gary Carter, and all these great players were there, and eventually Guerrero came in later. But they had the best record. I think they had 56 wins and some, a pittance of losses. But I just wanted to mention also the Montreal Royals had some great players: Jackie Robinson, Don Drysdale, Duke Snider, and Roy Campanella. And I know you know who those players are, but
sure.
When people say like baseball, the first game internationally ever played outside of the United States was played in Montreal. And the sad thing is that what you're talking about is that we had the poorest ownership. And imagine that you possibly could buy the Expos back then in 1969 with your income today, because it was only $10 million.
Yeah.
And the actual fee, San Diego had a franchise come in at the same time as Expos. They both were $10 million US, but the Montreal principal owner, Levesque, couldn't come up with the money. So the mayor asked Mr. Bronfman to come up with the money. He said, I'll put up half. And he asked the Maislin family, and he asked a bunch of other Montreal families to put in the other $5 million, which they did. But you can imagine the Bronfman family, Seagrew's family, one of the five. He was the fifth richest family in Canada at the time, and probably top 10 in the world because of Seagram's distilleries. He wouldn't pay the full fee. And that was our problem, McGraw. We didn't have proper ownership, and we went from Brochu, who sold the team to Loria and Samson. And when we sold the team for $120 million. It was resold for, I believe, $175 million. And that team today is worth $1 billion to maybe $2 billion.
I'll tell you what, Tony. I'll tell you what. Thanks for the phone call, Tony. Good stuff. You are right. You are right, and you bring up a good point. In terms of investment, I think you'd have to be pretty hard to find a sports franchise that lost money. Well, these exorbitant, right? The San Diego Padres just sold for $3.9 billion. San Diego Padres sold for $3.9 billion. The Mets sold, I don't know, it was 5-6 years ago for $2-point-something million. So $1 billion more just, 3 or 4 years later. It's a great investment. It is a great investment when you buy a sports franchise, no matter how much you have to pay for it, just pay for it because it will go up in value. Paul in Zanesville, Ohio, welcome to America at Night.
Yeah, man, that Tony's got a lot of facts in his head, I'll tell you.
Yes, he does.
I enjoyed your last hour with talking about Johnny Appleseed. Him and I could have been friends because I like me some good apple pie moonshine. You know what I'm saying? I didn't know that man was so complicated, to do something like that, or sophisticated, maybe I should say.
I had no idea that Johnny Appleseed was all about apple cider. That is true. I did not know that.
Yeah, well, I love it. It's refreshing when you talk about different things than politics, because I get you see it every day and you kind of get a little tired of it. It's important, yes, but it's refreshing that you do this on your show, and I really enjoy it. And you've done great. You really have, after the great Jim Bohannon. Rich, I don't know where you are, but I hope you're doing well. And McGraw, you're doing great. And thank you very much.
Paul in Zanesville, Ohio. What a brilliant man you are. What a very smart and intelligent man you are. Thanks for checking in. Good stuff. I appreciate the nice words. David in San Francisco, welcome to America at Night.
Oh, thanks, McGraw. Yeah, and as he and the previous caller talking about Duke's Place, isn't Jim's show the leftover of not Art Bell? Oh, good grief!
Larry King.
Larry King, yeah. And he was always going down to Duke's Place.
Yeah, we found that. We found that. Guys, get that ready again. We need a little Duke's Place. I'm trying to find somebody who will, and I might have a line on somebody. I'm trying to find somebody who will create a jingle for us. Instead of going to Duke's Place, I want to go to Joe's Place on Friday nights. And so we got to find someone who can create a jingle for us to take us down to Joe's Place on Friday night.
I'd hate to be caught up in a Joe trademark issue, but
well, I know Joe, so I think she should be quite all right with me telling everyone to go down to Joe's Place.
Good deal. What I was interested in, I heard you talking about the national debt, and the dollar value of the big bad bill, or the big beautiful bill, as Trump tries to call it. The exact measurement of it, he gives the super rich a $1.7 trillion tax cut. At the very time, the national debt goes up $1.7 trillion. So, the idea that the super rich are going to trickle down on us, no, they're going to take a leak on us. And they're doing it. And right now, the minimum wage, I'm a baby boomer. And when the baby boom was hitting the market, 1968, $1.60 of minimum wage, and the ounce of gold was $32. So it would take you 20 hours at minimum wage to buy 1 ounce of gold. Now, if you take today's ounce of gold, $4,700.16, or excuse me, $47.16.50, divide that by 20, and you're going to get a minimum wage that should be $235.68.
Well, okay, but look, I mean, I appreciate the analogy, but everything's more expensive, right? You need to work longer to buy your first home. You need to work more hours to buy a car. everything is more expensive, and salaries and income have not kept up with all of the price of things, and that's why people talk about affordability, and that's why people are angry in this country.
Right, and that's why the super rich are really just money hoarders. They're not reinvesting in America. They're just investing in some fly-by-night junk that.
Well, that's not true. I mean, they invest in all sorts of things. To make a blanket statement like that is somewhat disingenuous. Rich people, and super rich people invest in all sorts of things.
Treasury bills?
Warren Buffett buys them.
Right, but he's not every one of those.
I mean, I'm not privy to the financial portfolio of the super rich, but I know Warren Buffett buys Treasury bills, and I know Treasury bills is a financial vehicle for a lot of people. Yeah, somebody's buying them. The giant pension funds are buying them. China's buying them. Rich people all over the world are buying. Someone's buying Treasury bills because we're floating a lot of debt out there.
It's the idea that we, the people, can fix our stuff with Treasury notes. And it used to be, this 50 years ago, 100 years ago, whatever, that the rich guy in town would invest in a hospital bond issue, and he'd fix the local hospital.
Well, now hold on a second. But again, muni bonds are floated on the open market, and people buy all sorts of muni bonds. David, you're right. Look, when we had a mortgage, we went down to the corner bank and got a mortgage. Now it's sold on the open markets. It's a different world we live in. Dave, I got to go. I'm short on time, and I'm a slave to the clock. America at Night. Back in a moment.
Join the conversation. Call 844-2-McGraw. America at Night with McGraw Milhaven.
Baby, take me down to Duke's place. Wildest box in town is Duke's place. Love that piano sound in Duke's place. Saxes do their tricks in Duke's place. Fellas swing their chicks in Duke's place. Come on, get your kicks in Duke's place. Take it, Duke.
There you go. It was brought up. We had to play it. We had to play a little Duke Zebert for you. There we go. That's gonna do it for us tonight on America at Night. Thanks for everybody who chimed in. And, of course, Isaac Fitzgerald with the new book, American Rambler, talking about Johnny Appleseed and his walk across America, just like Johnny Appleseed. Hey, tomorrow night we'll do it all again. Thanks for listening. Thanks for calling, as always. Our executive director is Alex Hinton. Our engineer tonight is Richard Good. I'm McGraw Milhaven, and this is America at Night on Westwood One. I'm headed off to Duke Zebert's. We'll see you there.